Good evening, I'm Jim Schechter, and I direct Cornell's Precollege Studies program, which includes Summer Online for 2021. So I'm so glad that all of you could join us from around the world, and myself and my colleague, Jana Dawn, the Associate Director of Precollege Studies, are really excited to have you here so we can start looking forward to summer. And now that we're past winter in upstate New York, we feel like our world's gotten a little bit bigger. Right now, I know we have people online from Dubai, from Kentucky, from Connecticut, from all over the globe. And so this is part of the population that's going to be joining you to study this summer. Before I continue, I'd just like Jana to be able to say hello to you as we start in, and please continue to populate the chat by letting us know where you're from if you've just logged on.
Hi, everyone. As Jim mentioned, my name is Jana Dawn. I'm the Associate Director for Precollege Studies. It's amazing that we have over 500 people registered for tonight. And you all are adding where you're from, which is wonderful. As we go through our presentation tonight, you're likely to have questions. We ask that you click on the Q&A icon. If you look down at your Zoom toolbar, you'll see that icon. Just click on that and add any questions, and we will have time at the end of the presentation to answer many of your questions. So without further ado, Jim.
Thanks so much. So just from the population that's registering online right now in the chat, you get a sense that Cornell is a global university. Of course, at one point, it was just in the 1860s, a university deeded in terms of the land to Ezra Cornell, the founder of the university, a vision of starting an elite university that was egalitarian in nature, meaning, as he put it very simply, any person could find any study. So really, he was attempting to democratize education, but to provide the best education possible. As a land-grant university, Cornell is dedicated to supporting the people of New York State initially, but then obviously now its outreach and engagement has extended well beyond the borders of New York State, around the country and around the world. In 1958, we actually started the Precollege Studies program, which in its infancy was just an attempt to provide additional support to local students. Over the decades, it grew to enrich beyond the humanities and writing into the sciences, and now it represents Cornell's 8 colleges. So this is a very exciting moment in time for you to join us, which really extends our founder's vision of what we can accomplish. And now we get to do it online to reach you inside your home. Jana?
So here we are, COVID. So much to say about COVID and how it has changed all of our lives. This summer, it was a difficult decision to make for all of our classes to be offered online. But I think you'll agree it was the right decision to make, just to keep us all safe and healthy. But with that said, our online courses are amazing. They still are taught, they're still regular Cornell courses, they're still credit bearing. We'll talk more about the variety of courses that we offer this summer, and all being taught by world-renowned faculty. Jim?
So I know that all of you who have registered and joined us online tonight have some sense of what you would hope to accomplish by joining our program, or you're thinking about it for your own children and you're going to tell them about it, you know, hopefully with some excitement in your voice, having seen tonight's presentation. But even though you think you know what the benefits are, I just want to speak to a couple of them to give you both more context, but also sort of more nuance as to what happens. So for a lot of students, they know that they want to cut their teeth in college because they've already taken advantage of everything in your high school curriculum. And for many of you, that means having been successful in your advanced placement classes. The distinction between an advanced placement class, which does give you college credit, and a class with pre-college studies at Cornell, is that the Cornell class is actually taught by a specialist in the field who's a scholar and professor at Cornell, who teaches the exact same classes they do in the fall or spring term at the university. And so you get the opportunity to study, like Jana said, with renowned faculty alongside Cornell undergraduates in courses designed for them, in courses that if you and they complete them in good standing, you get the same recognition. everybody who joins the program and completes the class in good standing earns a standard, conventional, and respected Cornell undergraduate transcript and the 3 or 4 credit hours for a single class. Now, one of the reasons we want to offer this program is because we want you to enter college and your new college community with the confidence necessary both to navigate the admissions process, but also when you get into your classroom in college to have a sense that you can succeed as you want to because you've already done it once at a top-tier university. So like Jana said, you get to work with our standing faculty. It's no different from the rest of the year. And you also get expanded curriculum that gives you a taste maybe of something so specific that you can't get it in your conventional high school studies. One of the things that many of our students like to do is study with us so that they can get some more insight to the discipline that they think they're interested in, but they're unsure what it looks like in reality. So we'll talk a little bit just in a second now with the next slide about what these topics are. One of the things that we hope to do is that not only will you be successful in the future at college based on your success in the summer and your exposure to sort of higher level learning, but you'll return to your high school in the fall better equipped to even achieve more that you want to in the time remaining left in high school. So we want to enrich your study skills. We want you to sort of broaden your worldview by contact with new ideas and new people, whether that means your faculty or the other students online. And we also want you to be a little bit more prepared for the admissions process with a sense that you've distinguished yourself by cutting your teeth and jumpstarting college, you know, sort of in a precocious way at the point where you're sophomores, juniors, or seniors. Like tonight, there's a diverse international body of students who will be joining the classes. And so while we might not all be able to be together on campus, you'll have that degree of engagement you want, even though it's online. One of the things that hopefully you'll be able to identify is not only what your strengths are through the program, because I think you know, you've already mastered high school, so you sort of know what you can accomplish in that setting. But one of the things you might not know is what challenges lie ahead. And with the accelerated nature of the classes and also the rigor of college teaching, that combination should also give you a sense of what remains for you to work on. And so that could be anything from like time management to drafting papers to collaboration with peers. So we don't only want to just affirm that you're a good student, we also want to challenge you to be a better student. Jana?
So thank you, Jim. You may be asking yourself, so am I eligible? This is a very popular question for us, and who is eligible to take our courses. So if you have completed at least your sophomore year in high school, so that's the second year in the States or the international equivalent, you would be eligible to apply and enroll in our courses. When you're looking at our website and you look at courses, reading the descriptions, as you scroll down, there's an eligibility part, and it will list sophomores, juniors, and seniors. It may also just say juniors and seniors. Those are more higher level courses. We don't conduct any interviews. We don't require any specific GPA. However, we have learned from our alumni that students who in high school are taking the courses that they're taking and they're earning a B+ or above in all courses, they typically do well at Cornell. Jim?
So like Jana said, in terms of the eligibility, there's a comprehensive review of your performance in high school. And one of the reasons is we want to be able to project with a level of confidence that you'll be successful in a Cornell class as well. So while your GPA may be higher than that, or you may have had a semester that overwhelmed you, and so maybe that semester your GPA was a bit lower. What we're trying to understand is whether you've actually mastered the core curriculum of high school so that we can project with some confidence that you can reach up to the college level and perform equally as well, with a little more effort maybe, and also with a support structure in place from the university. So what will you study? One of the things we find really satisfying in terms of representing the teaching that's done in this program is that there's more than 100 Cornell undergraduate courses that actually pre-college students can access. That's a very unique enterprise. And Cornell does what it's always done well, which is to offer undergraduate credit-bearing classes, but afford ambitious, talented high school students access to them. So the courses are offered in 3 and 6 week sessions between June and August. And that way you can likely accommodate one of the classes you're interested in within that calendar period. You'll see under each of the course listings on our online website, if you haven't taken a good look yet, that there's a table under the summary or the synopsis of each course curriculum, and it identifies whether the course is synchronous or asynchronous. This simply means that if it's synchronous, it's offered on a set schedule by the faculty where it's in real-time delivery. You're interacting or listening to the lecture live as it happens, or the course is asynchronous, meaning it's pre-recorded. That affords you the opportunity to really have the flexibility you might want if you also have competing demands during that period. Maybe you're working, maybe you're traveling with family, maybe you have other things, commitments at your high school during the summer as well. So an asynchronous course allows you to log on at any point during the day and complete the work. So you have to decide in terms of the topical area you're interested in and the format in which it's delivered, what fits best for your interest as well as your schedule. Now, all the coursework is completed in an online platform that you might be familiar with from use at your schools or courses you've taken outside of your school setting, which we call Canvas. Everything for the course will happen in Canvas, whether it's interaction with your teaching assistants who are typically doctoral level students at Cornell supporting the faculty member who operates as the primary lecturer, or the professor themselves, or your other students from around the world. So you'll be getting assignments through Canvas, you'll be responding through Canvas, and you'll be submitting through Canvas. So it's really important that you know this is the medium of delivery. Please, Jen.
So as Jim mentioned, over 100 Cornell courses are offered this summer. And in addition to the courses that are listed here, we also offer courses in animal science, marketing, biology, in areas of microbiology and plant biology. We also offer courses in cognitive science, natural resources, science and technology, and the list goes on. So on that same page that we've been talking about, where you read the course description, you look at eligibility, you're also going to look for prerequisites. You want to make sure that any prerequisites that are listed, that you have met them. Without them, the course is more challenging if you haven't met them. Keep in mind that the Cornell courses that are offered are more challenging than AP courses that you've had in high school. They're 15 weeks, as Jim mentioned, 15 weeks during this fall and the spring semesters, condensed into 3 and 6 weeks. So they move at a really rapid pace. The professor is offering the course the same way as if all undergraduates were enrolled in the course. It's challenging, it's enriching, and it also helps you, realize your interest in the class and show off what you know. Jim?
So one of the, still to me, I've been directing this program the last 7 years, and I'm astounded every summer by the outstanding cohort of faculty who teach in it. Because like we mentioned before, these are not faculty from elsewhere in the country or people who teach part-time. You actually have the opportunity to study with Cornell's leading scholars and sample sort of the best of the best in terms of both the teaching and the curriculum, what's offered in schools you might be interested in applying to later on. So just as a sample amongst the 100 classes we offer, you can see the faculty on the right side of your screen. Professor Elizabeth Brundage, 3 years ago now, introduced international human rights and theory and practice to the program, which I know every year the students find so stimulating that they want to continue the conversations that transpire in class, outside of class. So we even had the first crop of students from that class created on their own independently when the class was over a website and a blog so that they could report on human rights issues of concern in their own countries to continue the dialogue that they started in Ithaca and then sustain it as they went back to their high schools. And of course, I'm talking about the period pre-COVID when they were on campus. Also, you'll see Dr. Anthony Burrow, who's an expert in adolescence and emerging adulthood. And one of the really satisfying aspects of Professor Burrow joining the program is that we had been offering an introduction to psychology course that was a great survey, as well as sports psychology. But we realized, of course, and it makes sense for a lot of teenagers, you know, the course sort of serves two purposes. One, you're in a very critical period of your life and maturation. And a lot of students want the opportunity to reflect on what that means and all the social and personal dimensions of it. So it affords students that opportunity. And secondarily, a lot of students are thinking about different applications for the study of psychology and adolescence, which means possibly speculating about a career in teaching high school or a career in social work or any number of things that touch on sort of the human condition as related to teen life. And so this is a way to jumpstart that interest. Just below him, Dr. Paul Mazza is an incredible colleague who has really excited a lot of students about the study of veterinary science. And for those of you who sort of dyed-in-the-wool animal lovers from age 3 on, you likely know that Cornell has the #1 veterinary science program in the country, one of the only programs that actually offers high school students access to veterinary science courses. So that's a really sort of unique enterprise unto itself. And Professor Mazza has a real genuine concern for students' welfare and academic ambitions. And last but not least, one of my favorites, Professor David Taylor, who's been had a long-standing commitment to pre-college studies at Cornell and has worked with legions of high school students at this point with an interest in business. His business course covers the breadth. So it's everything from a business plan to marketing to human resources to advertising, anything that could possibly go in to making a successful business at any scale, whether you're talking about establishing a cafe or working in a corporate setting. Professor Taylor personally has a lot of experience in the hotel industry to offer professional insight, as well as, of course, insight based on all the literature and theoretical knowledge that he holds. So that just gives you like a very small sample that just scratches the surface, but really you could point to any one of Cornell's 8 colleges and any one of its quads and any one of its buildings, and there's faculty from any of those institutions teaching together. Jana?
So this first bullet about the benefits from having one-on-one counseling, admissions counseling, both Jim and I are, once you've been admitted to the program, you have decided to attend, we are more than willing to talk with you. We can schedule an appointment. You just need to be in touch with us. We can talk to you about essays that you've written for college, talk to you about the admissions process. But also we have a Cornell undergraduate admissions officer who is going to provide a special online admissions workshop where she's going to talk about the application process. She's going to give tips about essay writing. She'll answer questions about applying for financial aid. She's also going to talk about discussing the impact of COVID, and with your likely not being able to go to the actual campus that you're interested in yet, she's going to talk about how to do a college search virtually and what things to look for that are meaningful to you. After you attend Cornell or after summer college, you would have Cornell Transcript. That means a lot as you are applying as an undergraduate, where you can show and provide a Cornell transcript. That's going to show that you have been able to take a fast-paced, challenging course, do well, and show that you are ready for college level work. I would highly recommend, in addition to showing off that Cornell transcript, that you also include this experience about the course and anything that you have learned on your resume. That does speak volumes about you, and admissions officers do pay attention to that. Jim?
Thanks, Jana. One of the things that obviously is a really important family conversation, and which I don't take lightly at all, is the amount of financial investment participation in any pre-college program requires around the country, including at Cornell. So the costs don't change at Cornell in terms of what a credit hour costs for a course during the fall and spring term, and the cost of that credit hour during the summer term. In addition, the costs of a course don't change depending on whether it's held on campus or whether it's held online. And the reason for that is you're really getting access and attention from the same set of scholars with the same degree of commitment to the course, and the course requires the same amount of discipline to execute well, both on the part of the faculty and the teaching assistants, and you, the student, him or herself. So the cost per credit is $1,575. So a 3-credit class is $4,725. And as we mentioned, there's 3 different sessions during the course of the summer. So students actually take a range of different credit hours in terms of the total number of credit hours and the number of classes they take. Some students elect to take 1 class strictly because that's the course they're interested in. Other students elect to take 1 class strictly because of the financial concern that it's already a financial commitment on their and their family's part. So it's a highly personal decision as to what you want to invest in and for what duration you want to study. Some students will take 1 class, as I mentioned. Some students will take 3 classes over the course of the 3 different sessions in the summer. To undertake the application process is actually relatively streamlined because we're working online now. So we've made it as efficient as possible. You need to visit the address that's on there, precollege.cornell.edu, and go to the Apply tab. One of the things that students and guardians and parents should be aware of from the get-go is that this requires a commitment on the part of the student, because a student opens up their own personal online account to complete the application, which really requires some basic biodata and then the submission of your transcripts from your past terms and present term online. So a lot of students immediately after they've submitted their materials want to know what the answer is. Have you been admitted? Have you been rejected? And we definitely work to try and alleviate that strain. So likely within about 48 hours of applying, if everything's in order in terms of you've completed the forms flawlessly, and we have all the academic records we need for the committee to evaluate your fitness for admissions. Typically, it's just a couple days until there's a turnaround, and we're able to inform you online as to your admission, and also your guardians or parents in terms of by the email addresses which they provide. So that's on the back end. At the front end, you have to think about the fact that the application deadlines vary. So since I said there's 3 terms of study, with these staggered terms, it also means there's opportunities to apply later if you're unsure of what you're doing in the summer, or earlier if you really want to make that commitment, because we know that a lot of our classes have already begun to fill. So often courses, just to give you an example, like business and psychology and veterinary science, a lot of those courses start to fill early on, even though we're just on the cusp of spring right now. And there's a range of courses within those disciplines. So it's not, I'm not saying that you're out of luck. I'm just trying to encourage you that if you know what you want to study, jump online and at least get into the process. Because you don't want to think, well, I'll wait until June and then decide what's happening with my summer plans, because it's simply going to be too late. So the first deadline is May 17th, right around the corner. So for session 1, but like I said, that's a little misleading, only in that we know that 2,000 students from around the world already have their applications in process. So if you have outstanding questions or concerns, the email address for the program will continue to pop up as we give this presentation. Take it down, let us know what your questions are in that mode. But also, like Jana had said before, you can use the question and answer button, which we'll be glad to answer as many questions as possible at the end of our presentation. Thanks, Jim.
So here we are. I see we already have 36 wonderful questions, I'm sure. Take the time to read this quote from an alumni. He had an amazing experience, and we want you to too. So Kenny, what questions do we have?
Yeah, my name is Kenny, and I've been keeping an eye on questions as they've been coming down. Thank you so much for all your questions. We've got 38 questions, which is probably more than we're going to be able to answer. So if you can take the time while we're answering these early questions to just read through the list. If there's a question that you'd like asked that's important to you, you can upvote that, and that'll tell me push it to the top of the list. So right now, the top question was, do we need recommendation letters to apply?
This season is a little different. Generally in the past, recommendation letters were sort of a standard enterprise. And right now, because of the offerings are strictly online, we feel that we can really understand your academic capabilities on the basis of your academic record. So we're strictly asking for you to submit the transcript from all the terms completed.
Approximately how many hours of work are there per day for one class?
Jana, why don't you speak to that?
So you're typically in a 3-week class, you're typically in a lecture for 2.5 hours. Outside of that, you should spend 2.5 hours per hour outside of class during homework. For 6-week classes, you're in class for 1 hour and 25 minutes. Again, you should expect to spend at least 2 hours, 2.5 hours per hour on homework.
Are AP classes required to join this program?
Oh, that's an interesting question. No, AP classes are not a prerequisite to join the program. Really, what's a prerequisite is that, like I said earlier, your high school transcripts reflect the fact that you have mastered the curriculum offered in high school, that really you've demonstrated your competency in courses, but you've excelled. And the reason for the sort of that distinction between like being competent and actually excelling across disciplines or across terms is that we've seen that students who do uniformly well throughout their high school career and independent of like what they're studying, that in any class they've generally done well. We can sort of now intuit that that student really has the capacity to excel given any kind of a challenge, because you may be surprised by sort of the sophisticated nature of the reading or the pace of the lectures. But if you've done well through thick and thin in high school, we have confidence that you'll be able to succeed. And most importantly, really on my terms, and having worked with thousands of students in this program now, is that you also will need the ability to ask for help. College classes might not come as easily to you, and likely won't, as some of your high school work has, especially early on before you started doing APs or before your curriculum started getting more advanced in your second or third year. But if you're not a student accustomed to asking for help, this is also an opportunity to learn that, because really we know from our program that they're really the best students, and the only good student is one who's able to like reach out to their faculty member and reach out to their teaching assistants to clarify what they don't know. So if we see on your high school transcript that you've done well in different semesters and in different disciplines, not just in English, but in English and math and history, we can assume that in some of those classes you face different kinds of challenges, but your outcomes appear to be the same. So that gives us a greater degree of confidence that if troubled and challenged, you'll actually know how to troubleshoot on your own behalf, so you become a good advocate for what you need.
I just want to add that in the summer, the courses are smaller, meaning you would have more interaction with faculty and TAs. So you get to know them better. You get to have more involved conversations with them. Through Canvas, like we talked before, you can talk with them that way. Zoom is another opportunity. But just they're smaller classes in the summer than they are in the fall and spring. So you get to know your faculty much better.
Can taking summer classes give students a better chance of getting accepted into Cornell when they apply?
Really, there's no magic formula for getting admitted to Cornell or any other university or college. And so what I think a good admissions board does at any institution is really evaluate the full sweep of a student's academic record. So they're just as likely to look at how you performed in your US history class at your high school as they are to look at your history class at Cornell. Now, how they weigh what you represent in your personal statement and how you write about experiences that have positively impacted your interests and your trajectory and your aims, that's really difficult for me to know. But we can be assured that the readers of your personal statements and Common App statements, they will trying to be deciphering who you are based on the experience that you've accrued and the maturity you demonstrate. So really, I think it's really up to the student as to how you represent the implications of any study you've done, including your time at Cornell.
Yeah, and that's a really popular question for us. And I just want to add a plug that if you apply and attend the class, that you'll be able to ask that specific question to the Cornell's undergraduate admissions officer, because I'm sure she has some insight into that question.
What does the asynchronous format look like? Is it just assignments or lecture recordings and assignments, or does it just depend on the teacher?
Well, there's all varieties of exercises, activities, and lectures that are packaged in asynchronous modules, so that whether a class is in real-time delivery in terms of a synchronous format or an asynchronous format, it doesn't mean that the workload is either lighter or heavier. That's always, I can say that with sort of some assurance because it's sort of across discipline and across the curriculums, the classes are challenging. So it really, the mode of the class depends on how a course is structured in general, not the medium of delivery. So you may have a course where the assignments are strictly papers or essays. You may have a course, of course, where it's only test and quiz based. You may have a course where even though it's online, there's enough of an interactive model through the Canvas platform that you're working collaboratively, say for instance, on a hypothetical business that you're establishing together. So it's less about whether it's asynchronous or it's synchronous in terms of the course content. Really, the medium itself and the different ways it's used just opens up the possibility that you can find a way to schedule this in the summer season that fits your needs.
Is there any financial aid or any scholarship funds? And if so, what would be the process to apply for it?
Maybe you can speak to that, Jana.
Yeah, unfortunately, the financial aid application has passed. We do offer limited financial aid in the summer, around $1,000 to $3,000, but that deadline passed in early April.
And the only other thing I'd say about that is if you take a look at our website, you'll see some creative examples of students who have undertaken fundraising in a lot of different ways and with great degrees of success. So some have created Kickstarter or GoFundMe sites where they've used whatever network exists in their community. And by community, I mean their wide community of family and friends around the country, around the globe, to generate interest in what they're trying to accomplish, this being an important intermediary step towards a college career. Of course, one of the things I encourage students to do in your local community is explore any and all options that might be available. Even if initially you're intimidated by the prospect of approaching people or organizations you don't know, you might consider approaching your mosque, your church, your temple to see if they have any funds, even limited funds, that could help seed your tuition money. Often there's community organizations you might not think about, like the League of Women Voters or the PTA or the Rotary Club. Start to ask both your teachers, your parents, your guardians, their friends, as to whether they know of any funds in the community. Sometimes local banks have little funds they give students. So really sort of, and I'm not even being tongue in cheek, just sort of by hook or crook, to start to think creatively about what it takes. I mean, and then I think the other option is by you just reaching out to people in your network without a GoFundMe page. And it doesn't have to be that you're looking for somebody to drop $1,000 in support, but that $10 or $20 might make a real difference. So we've seen students who I didn't think would attend. Probably the most creative example was a few years ago where a mother and her daughter had purchased an ice cream truck sometime ahead of the application process and helped generate funds that way, and sort of everything under the sun from there. So one of the things you can do is contact us with sort of the subject being fundraising with a note about your local community. And if it gets to me, maybe I can do a little research, which I'll often try to pitch in and just like poke around just like you on Google and see what exists in that area or that region that you might not think about otherwise. The other place I would encourage you to start Googling is sort of community foundations, if those exist in your town, city, or metropolitan area. And for those of you in rural areas of the United States, if you think about 4-H or any kind of like agricultural organization, you might just contact them to ask what they know of. Because obviously there have been students in your community before you facing the same challenge as how do I raise money to attend college, even if it wasn't a pre-college program. So it just means you have to sort of like lose any inhibition you have. Not about asking directly for the money, but about asking where to look for the money.
Are asynchronous courses any less rigorous than synchronous courses?
Jana,
do you want to comment on that?
No, actually. As Jim mentioned, they are the same. They actually, because you can decide when to watch the lecture, it gives you that flexibility. But other than that, it's the same content, it's the same information that, that you need to cover, same assignments. So other than offering a different time for what's convenient for you, the course is pretty much the same.
I understand that synchronous classes are meant to be taught in real time. Are synchronized classes ever recorded for those on different time zones, or if you aren't able to attend for a week or for a day? Or are the synchronous classes not recorded?
It really depends on the faculty members. Sometimes they may record a lecture, but the expectation is if the course is live or synchronous, and you would know that by the days and times listed underneath the course description, that all students attend.
And if courses are synchronous, but you can't attend the final, you would be able to correspond with the teaching assistant or the faculty member to explore whether there's an alternative by which you can fulfill the last assignment or the final exam. But it's not a given that there's that flexibility in place.
Are rising sophomores eligible?
No,
Go ahead,
no,
Jim.
you need to be a current sophomore. So you would be transitioning into being a rising junior.
Are 14-year-olds eligible?
14-year-olds, by petition, we can consider it if you email the summer college address and explain your situation, and we may use some sort of a background review even before you've opened up the application process.
My school doesn't have advanced placement classes. Will I be behind if I attend your summer program?
No, you won't be behind, and the course content of a college curriculum and Cornell's college curriculum don't pivot on whether a student had exposure to that area of study in an advanced placement class. So an advanced placement class may give you an intermediary step in terms of understanding like the rigor of more extensive reading or a more extensive reading list or a more sophisticated problem set. But even though you haven't encountered that before, and many students don't encounter that because their schools just don't have the amenity of AP classes, still it's likely that you can be a successful college student. So you shouldn't think of yourself as limited because your high school doesn't have those AP classes, whether it's in regards to attending Cornell's pre-college studies or applying to college in the future.
Last summer, I did a similar program at a different university. My college counselor told me not to take another course this upcoming summer because it could hurt me in the college admissions process. Is that true? Can doing too many college courses during high school hurt your college applications?
I'll be curious to hear Jana's response as well. I mean, mine is I've never heard that before, and have to have a more in-depth conversation with your school counselor to know what they thought the implications were. I think usually I would consider it to a credit to a high school student who's ambitious enough to have taken a range of college classes and maybe even in a range of areas of interest, because it's to my mind, it simply suggests that you're an inquisitive person with a lot of drive. Whether you're doing these classes at your local community college or in your state system, or in the summertime at a pre-college program at Cornell or elsewhere, I think it generally suggests that you're looking to maximize your education while you're a teen rather than waiting. And personally, I don't see any benefit to waiting unless there's alternative ways you like to spend your time. And so as a complement to other personal interests you have that you find nourishing and rewarding, I can see that being a reason to limit your expenditure and academic output. But there's no drawback I can see to just taking any college class you want to at any point. Jana, is there anything else I'm thinking about?
No, I actually have a degree from Cornell and took classes before being admitted to the program, and it was actually a plus to take as many courses as I could. As Jim says, it's just showing your eagerness, you taking the initiative. I can't see any drawbacks for doing that.
If I don't do as well as I would like in the summer pre-college course, but my grades in high school are excellent, would the pre-college course affect my possible admittance into Cornell?
I think I can take this question. It's a good question, and it's really significant to consider when you start sort of getting into this arena of not only doing your high school work but also taking college classes. And it shouldn't be a significant deterrent. It's a significant to think about. So you take what you're doing seriously because it requires that degree of commitment. One of the things that I've told students in the past, of course, if I've helped host, say, 5,000 students on campus in the last half dozen years, not all those students' performance matched what their aspirations was. So some underperformed, inevitably due to extenuating circumstances or the challenge and rigor of the topical area that they were ill-equipped for, or finding that the class didn't really resonate in the way they thought it would. So they lacked the drive to complete it the way they had hoped. Whatever the case, really, to my mind, what happens in the college admissions process is they give you an ample opportunity to explain yourself. Where things in your life have gone wrong, what were meaningful moments that helped shape you is a common app question. Can you think of a time that impacted you that you'd want to write about that otherwise we wouldn't speak of? One of the things to remember is that life is not a series of successes that then culminate in greater success. There's challenges along the way and intermediary steps to discovering both sort of who you are in that big way and also what you want to do. And sometimes there's setbacks and challenges. And so what I've advised students who have not performed up to their expectations is that when they're writing their essays, they really wrestle with the meaning of that experience. What's the lesson learned when something hasn't gone well for you? And that's both, could be what happened when you thought you had the job of your life and all of a sudden your internship finished in with a dismal performance review. What happened in a course when you thought you'd get an A and instead you got a C+. Not specific to pre-college, but even in high school. Socially, was there a moment where you thought you would really enjoy some degree of like companionship and solidarity with friends, and instead, you know, it was a really like antagonistic environment that submarined your personal welfare. All of these things are sort of grist for you to think about who you want to become and to reflect on what you learned in the past. And I think it's the same way when it comes to a pre-college studies program. If you underperform, quote unquote, in that class, just meaning you didn't meet your own expectations, well, I think people who are reviewing your application in the future at any college will want to know, well, what's the significance of that to you? If you didn't learn a lesson from it, it's really, then it's a detriment. But if you sort of learn something about yourself, like, I didn't know how to manage my time. I only really understood that in the last third of a chorus. Had I had more time to apply, I think I could have met my objectives of getting a B+. Next time around, that's my intent to do. A classic thing for students besides time management challenges is, how do I approach a faculty member or a teaching assistant for support, or to ask a question, or to disclose that I'm unprepared for a quiz or a test because I don't understand the material. Like I said about 20 minutes ago, how do you reach out for help? So one of the major things students can learn in a program like ours or any other program around the country is, how do I bridge that divide between what I presume is a renowned scholar who's inaccessible and me, just a plain old high school student? Well, actually, the person you're teaching in your class is just a renowned teacher who has a really sincere interest in your academic welfare and in your person. And so they will help you with what you need. And we want to have adequate wraparound academic support in place through them and their teaching assistants. But you will need to learn to make it known that you need support and assistance. So those are some of the things that students learn by virtue of the process, and which I hope, even if students don't end up writing about those challenges when it comes time for their admissions materials, I do hope students reflect not only on your successes, but on what you learn in the process along the way.
Are the course syllabi available online?
The syllabi are not available online. You can write to us. If we have it from past years, we can send it to you. We can also be in touch with faculty and ask if it's available.
What's the daily schedule for the synchronous classes?
It really depends on the class. So when you're looking at the website, look for the days and times that the class is offered. If there are no days and times there, that means that it's offered asynchronously. There may be times when a class is asynchronous that the faculty does want to get everybody together for a live lecture. If that happens, they will be in touch with all students to find out what a mutually agreeable time is for everyone in the class.
Are classes primarily lectures or interactive, or does it depend on the class?
I think I was mentioning a little while ago that it's really contingent on the course. You may have a course which is the online equivalent of a large lecture hall, where there's the primary lecturer, the professor who's teaching the class, straight up lecturing, where you then have breakout groups and discussion sections with teaching assistants. You may have smaller scale classes where there's 20 people discussing fiction, and there's a facilitated discussion with prompts and contributions that are synchronous in real time. So there's everything between those two poles that you can imagine. It's just, you know, like some of your high school classes where you have breakout sections in one class, but in the other class, you haven't had a breakout section during the year. And especially now, due to the pandemic, after the last couple of years, of all of us, including you, being vested in online learning. I think now the degree of sophistication about how the tools can be best used, or maybe this is like the optimal moment. So you can expect the same kind of creativity you would find in different kind of classrooms to be exhibited in the way our faculty use the online medium.
How will Cornell credits transfer to other schools?
Jana, why don't you talk to that?
The Cornell Transcript, when you're applying as an undergraduate in the Common App, it will ask for you to provide any college coursework that you've done. It really is up to that individual institution that you're applying to and how they apply it. So those credits could be transferred as, to the core curriculum. It could be transferred and considered more as a, I lost the word.
An elective?
Or class, but a class that, help me, Jim.
You're looking for the difference between a requirement and an elective?
An elective, thank you. So it could be looked at as an elective, but you would still earn the credits.
What's the average unweighted GPA of people who get it?
There's no specific GPA because we're trying to look at the whole sweep of the academic record, and different semesters might have different degrees of significance. What we do know, like Jana mentioned early on in the presentation from alumni, is that if a student has a B+ average at your school, maybe a 3.7 GPA or thereabouts, that suggests like a degree of mastery over the high school curriculum that you can project with some confidence that you'll also be able to succeed in an accelerated, rigorous summer course at Cornell.
If you make an application, can you attach your transcript to it later?
Absolutely.
Say again, Jana?
You can upload the transcript when you apply, or you can send it to us via email at our pre-college mailbox.
Okay. Does the transcript have to show every year that you've been in high school or just the current year?
We require both. So if you are a current junior, we would require your 9th and 10th grade transcript, and then your current grades in the 11th year.
Is there an option to take more than one pre-college course this summer?
It depends on which session you're in. If you are wanting to take a course in a 3-week session, you're able to take only one course. If you want to enroll in a 6-week session, you can take up to 8 credits.
What class or classes would you recommend to somebody who's interested in business?
There are a wide range of business classes that we offer. So could be economics. There are actual business classes in arts and sciences. There's psychology. There's applied economics, macroeconomics. There's marketing. Yeah, I'm not even thinking of all of them, but there's a wide range of business classes.
Yeah, one of the things I think Jana's likely thinking about when fielding the question is that Cornell merged the Dyson School of Business, where traditionally had done applied economics, the Hotel School and the Johnson School of Management into one of the largest colleges of business in the country. So that access to our program affords you the chance to consider like the breadth of business studies and economic studies at Cornell. So it's hard to isolate like a single course that's the best, as there's so many. So if I were you, I would go online and look under economics and applied economics and hotel management and start to pick through some of the summaries and be just discerning in terms of what resonates with you personally.
For the asynchronous classes, what mechanisms exist for interaction between students and professors?
Jana, do you want to speak to that?
For asynchronous, it's mostly through Canvas, could also be through Zoom. If there are students abroad, the faculty will also communicate with those students to find out what works well. There's a wide variety, and it's really up to the faculty, but the most important thing is that they communicate with all students who are registered in the class to find out what works for everyone.
What's the refund policy?
The refund policy is you can drop a class up to the third day and receive 100% refund. If we can post a link to the refund schedule, that would be great.
Once we return to in-person learning, is there a plan to maintain an online option in the future?
Yeah, I can say so. Cornell has a long history of online studies, and regardless of the term that an undergraduate student studies, whether it's fall, winter, spring, summer, there's always online study opportunities, and high school students do apply to take online courses throughout the year.
If we've taken classes at our local community college, should we add that on the transcript too?
As one of your transcripts to submit, of course, that'd be great.
Yes, please do.
After the 3-week program, will students still have access to the advisor?
Well, it really depends on the advisor's time. So it's difficult for us to speak to what their commitments are external to the program. And I mean everything from their family life to their research and their teaching. So to the extent that any person's able to be responsive to a global array of students, typically faculty enjoy that prospect. It might not be with the immediacy of the summer in which you're engaged in their course, but often our faculty and students continue to dialogue well beyond the academic term they're studying in.
And we can also be a conduit that if you're not able to reach faculty, we can put you in touch with them after the fact.
Are international students eligible?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things even our chat reflects tonight is seeing the students populate the question and answer from Dubai, the UAE, India, China. And it's really one of the pleasures of working within the program is the contact with this global body of students. So we presume that there'll be a large representation from students from all around the world.
Is there an application fee?
There is a $65 application fee, which allows for the administrative process that has to take place to both undertake the compilation of the materials and then also the review and then the response and dialogue that's ongoing with the student and their guardian and parents.
Is an essay required on the application?
There is no essay during this period when we're strictly focused on the online program.
Do you have to convert our grades to 4.0 GPA scale?
We don't make sometimes it's really difficult to make that conversion. I don't know if the source of the question is a student overseas or somebody just at a school in the United States with sort of a different kind of a rubric. But we do have context for most students from most countries whose transcripts we've seen before. So we can reference and understand your materials. And if for some reason there's nuances we don't understand, we'll further correspond with you or the administrators at your high school.
So we're winding down. I think we've got time for 2 more questions. Is there an add drop period to change your course on the first day or second day?
Jana, what's the add
3 week
period for the online?
Yeah, for a 3-week session, it is not advised. We typically, when students are on campus, don't allow students to switch from one 3-week class to another. Keep in mind that courses are covering 15 weeks worth of material. For 6-week classes, our add drop period up to the first Wednesday of the first week. So you have 3 days. But again, it's really best to get settled and registered into a class that you really want to take and are interested in. We do need to get faculty authorization in order to add a class after the first day. Some faculty say that there's too much work that has been covered in the first day, and so they don't allow it. So we do have that in the 6-week session, but not advised.
There have been so many questions tonight, which has been great. Clearly, we can't answer them all right now, but what you can do is to take your question and send it to us in an email. And if you do that, we can send you the answer back, which would be great. For the last question, how will admissions take into account students who attend high school freshman year in an all virtual format due to the pandemic? For example, if the students' grades were not ideal due to missing live interactions with peers and teachers?
That's a really interesting and provocative question for sort of conversation and speculation. But it would be misleading of me to suggest how any admissions department, whether Cornell or college at any state around the country, will respond to this sort of turbulent period in our social history. You know, I think one of the things they would do, and this is strictly speculation on my part, is try to understand the full breadth of the person who's applying. So what have you accomplished in your time in high school? Not just strictly the period during the pandemic. If we're talking about, I think the question was not specific to pre-college, but it was specific to college itself. Is that correct?
Both.
I think one thing that I can tell you we do, because it's easier for me to speak to pre-college studies itself and the work of our admissions committee, is if a student has an off semester in general, but has a record of strong performances in most of their terms, and again, this is with a sort of a larger breadth of academic work than somebody who's strictly saying their first year, we may pose questions by email to that student to better explain what the extenuating circumstances were that contributed to sort of a volatile academic record or sort of flux in their academic record. My suspicion is that for a student who's considering applying to an accelerated program at a college or university known for its rigor, that likely you have some successes along the way. Even if you were submarine different months by the pandemic, there may be outstanding strengths that you've had that did shine through, irrespective of the period in which you got into high school and studied. Again, it's hard to detect anyway if somebody's doing a review in any given year beyond the pandemic, what kind of contact you've had in and out of class with people and how that academic socialization has impacted your grades, if we're just looking at the transcript. So I don't think it's a detriment in general to have studied during this period that heavily relies on online learning. I think it just means you would need to address in essay form, where you're applying for admissions at any college to matriculate for a bachelor's, like I mentioned before, reflect in a very personal way on what the significance of this period has been to you academically and what kind of growth you've experienced through it that might lend itself to your being an even better student in the future. And that's really, I mean, it'd be kind of like foolhardy of me to speak to things that I really can't project based on the fact that we don't work admissions and we don't work at every institution. So I can really, it's much easier for me just to drill down to the pre-college studies program experience.
Yeah, I was just going to echo, this is a perfect example of what Jim brought up before, of to take the initiative and to include an essay exactly about what the situation was, what you learned about yourself, what you would do differently had you do it if you had to do it again. what type of learner you are. It's really a perfect example of how you can present yourself. And I would take the initiative in that situation. You know, before somebody contacts you, you contact the admissions person to talk about what the situation was. Don't allow them to interpret a situation that, you know, they may not contact you about. So it's best if you reach out first and to describe the situation.
So we've had time, Jim, Jana, for just a few closing words.
Well, first of all, I just want to say I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to, you know, further inquire what we do and how we do it, and what Cornell's offerings could mean to you realizing your academic goals. I think it's really significant that you're setting aside the time either with the company of your guardians or parents or with your children or independently, so you can undertake the conversation later as a household. These are really significant decisions, both in terms of the degree of academic commitment required in the summer to be successful in a challenging course at a top university, and also really meaningful in terms of the financial investment it requires, which merits that seriousness of purpose. But I'm just find it extremely gratifying to be able to share the work that faculty do at Cornell in its 8 colleges, and to think about the fact that we can now make that accessible to you as a talented high school with interests you might be able to really meet through participation in our program.
I would just add, take the first step, apply, see what happens, ask us questions. You know, what you can attend a class for 3 days, and if it's not something you thought, you have a chance within 3 days to have 100% refund. It's easy, and it also says a lot about, you know, you and what you want to accomplish.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jana. Thank you, everybody, for coming and hanging out with us.
Thanks, everyone.
If there are other questions, you can send them to us and we will get back to you on them.